Hey, welcome to another segment of Culture Cast. Dustin Homan is the program manager of the 4-H special programs, programs that he's involved with, and he's going to be talking with Meredith Oglesby, who's going to be talking about Australia. So stay tuned. Hey, welcome back to another segment of Culture Cast with Dustin Homan. Dustin has a unique perspective. He's the program manager of the 4-H programs at the Ohio State University, in the fact that he works with a number of different students who have been seeing the world in various different 4-H projects. And it's my pleasure to have Dustin make a interview Meredith Oglesby. She's a student, third year, a junior at the Ohio State University, in which she did a trip to Australia. I've never been to Australia, but some of the pictures that she brought back, I think, is just a fantastic program that we have lined up for you. So, Dustin, welcome.
Hey, thank you, Patrick. It's good to be back from our little hiatus over the summer. State Fair keeps us very busy here at the 4-H Center, so it's nice to be back in the groove and back on Culture Cast.
Oh, I always look forward to our programs.
Well, thanks, Patrick. As you already mentioned, I am very honored today to have Meredith Oglesby with me. Meredith is a student in the College of Food, Agriculture, and Environmental Sciences at Ohio State. Meredith, welcome to Culture Cast.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Tell the viewers a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up, your involvement, and then how did you end up at Ohio State?
Yeah, so I originally grew up in Hillsboro, Ohio, and now I'm a student here at Ohio State majoring in agricultural communication with a minor in environment, economy, development, and sustainability. Throughout, growing up, I was involved in 4-H and FFA, so that's where it kind of sparked my interest for agriculture, and now I have a huge interest in food security and sustainability, which is why I'm here.
We're going to be talking about Australia today, and not only have we not been to that continent before to talk about any countries on that continent, we have also not been to any countries within that continent because Australia is a country and a continent. So kind of a place to explore today. Meredith, tell the viewers, first of all, have you been abroad before this trip?
Yeah, so I've been abroad twice. I went to Costa Rica when I was a junior in high school, and then I studied abroad in Nicaragua my freshman year.
Australia is a long way from Central America, where you had been before. What excited you about going to Australia?
So I think it's really cool that Australia kind of broke away from the other parts of the continent a really long time ago. So a lot of things that we learned about are just endemic to Australia. A lot of the animals we saw, a lot of the plants we saw, the fauna, all of that sort of thing is just in Australia. And I thought that was really cool.
As Patrick said, Meredith was going through her photos with us before we started recording, and it looks like a National Geographic spread. I'm on board. I know Patrick's on board. Dwayne will take you with us too, and we hope our viewers are really excited about this country. I remember when I think about Australia, one thing that comes to mind is there was an incredible swimmer during the Summer Olympics a couple years ago that was up against Michael Phelps. I don't remember his name, but that is like the only thing that comes to mind about Australia. So thankfully, Meredith's going to tell us a little bit more about this country today. Dwayne, if you'll go ahead and show the map of Australia. I'm sure most of our viewers know where Australia is, but just in case you don't, it's the country that's highlighted in white on the right side of your screen. As Meredith had said, Australia is a really unique place in that it's kind of its own secluded island. It has a population of about 23.2 million people. which if it was a U.S. state, that would make it the third largest state, right below Texas and right before Florida. So that gives you a little bit of a perspective on the population there. It's a former British colony, and if we show the flag, you might be able to tell that from the flag. So they've incorporated the Union Jack there into their own flag. Most of the population in Australia lives on the periphery, on the outside coast, and Meredith may be able to tell us a little bit more about that as we get into this. So I've heard, as I was reading a little bit about Australia, it said that there are a lot of different climate zones. So you've got desert, you've got tropical forest. Did you see some of that while you were there?
Yeah, so it was really cool. The program took place in northern Queensland, and we started in the rainforest, which is up on the mountains, and then we traveled to the shore and we did some stuff in Townsville. And then we went to the outback, and then we went to the Atherton Tablelands. So the outback is the desert, and then the Atherton Tablelands is where they do all of their farming. And then we went to the Great Barrier Reef, which is obviously on the coast. And the reason that there's so many different climates has to do with the placement of the mountains down the shore and how the rain falls down the mountains. So the rain falls towards the Atherton Tablelands, and then the outback doesn't get that much rain. And then the mountains have become the way they are because of where the shore's at.
You keep saying outback, and all I can think about is Outback Steakhouse. Did you see any of those people
Actually,
there?
I'm not gonna lie, exactly how you picture the outback is exactly how it is. Like, the soil is red, there were rusty cars like sitting outside, like the kangaroos are just hopping around. It was really awesome.
Really feeds into my stereotype of that. All right. The environment is, as you're describing this, Meredith, you've got some amazing photos of the environment. And so let's show those to the viewers, and then you can continue to explain a little bit about what you saw while you were there. And so obviously, I'm sure a lot of people think about Australia, they think about the Great Barrier Reef. And tell us about what you got to do on the study abroad.
Yeah, so for 3 days, we snorkeled on the Great Barrier Reef. If you had your dive license, you were allowed to scuba dive. I didn't have mine, so we just snorkeled. But we did 3 different stops, so 3 different days. So we snorkeled in 9 different locations around the reef. And we just got to see all the coral and all the fish. And it was really cool because we were partnered with a program that takes place in Australia that does a lot with AUIP, which is the program I was on. And so we got to practice doing research. The research we did didn't impact any research like around the world or anything, but we got to practice what it's like to do research on the reef. And so we laid out like the string, and we would swim and like count the fish and see the impacts, that because the reef is split up into different zoning areas depending on what's allowed to happen in the different colored zones. So we got to.
Is the water here?
So it just depends. Some of the areas, like, you couldn't swim over the reef. Like in that photo, you can tell that I'm like swimming over the reef. In some areas you couldn't because you can see it from the top of the water. That's a little bit deeper. It just depends. It's kind of like in Nemo when they say the drop off. There literally are areas where it just drops off, and then it's just the open water in the ocean.
Boy, the water is clear there.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, we were really lucky. The lady that was with our program said that we were super lucky with how clear the water was and how sunny it was when we were there for all 3 days.
Meredith, you keep talking about the program. Tell the viewers a little bit about the program that you were on that was offered through the College of Food, Ag, and Environmental Sciences.
Yeah, so the program was about a month long, and it was through a company called AUIP, which partnered with the College of Food, Agricultural, and Environmental Sciences. And they kind of planned out and what we were going to do, and then they kind of made the curriculum for what we were going to be learning about. And then we had a professor and a TA from Ohio State with us who were in charge of like making sure that we understood the curriculum and taught, and they were with us through all of the different activities that we did.
How many students went?
There were 22 of us.
Wow.
And a month is typically longer than most of the study abroads offered in our college. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So you were there for a good amount of time, which I think is good. From my experience, when you go to a different country and you're there for just a week or two, it's hard to get acclimated and into the culture. And so when you're there for a month, did you feel like, when you came home, did you feel a little homesick?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
It was really hard because Australia is 14 hours ahead of us.
Oof.
So I was really glad that we were there for a month because it gave us ample time to adjust to the time zone that we were in. And then it was like we lived in Australia at that point. So that was really fun. It was really hard to come home because we had been doing so many different adventure type things that it was just, and then I was super jet lagged when I came home. So
No accent though. You didn't come back with any.
I was really hoping, but
That would be incredible. Let's get back to the photos. So you had an opportunity to snorkel across the Great Barrier Reef. You also had a really unique opportunity to engage with the people, the Australians. Tell us about that.
So we had a chance to stay in the Atherton Tablelands, which I mentioned was the farmland in Australia. And we stayed with a host family for about 3 days. And while we were there, we got to tour their farm and learn about some of their sustainable practices that they use to ensure that their runoff and farming practices like that don't harm the Great Barrier Reef because all the waterways are connected. So even in the Atherton Tablelands, they have to worry about what their farming practices and how those will impact the reef.
So I'm assuming that one of the farms was an orange farm. Are those oranges?
Yeah, so it wasn't like a complete orange farm. They just had a lot of orange trees on their farm. It was actually a beef farm, so they farm a lot of meat and beef in that area. And while we were there, their orange trees had produced a lot of oranges, and so they asked us if we wanted to make orange juice. And that was one of the ways that they say they stay sustainable is by growing their own food and then being able to provide for themselves juice, and then they're not having to go to the store and buy it, because Australia has to import a lot of products because the only fruit, I guess, that's endemic to Australia is the macadamia nut.
Huh.
So that's why a lot of their products are a lot more expensive, is because all of their food and stuff, they grow food there now, but it's just the land is not.
You said that it was a beef farm? So
Yeah, the beef farm is where I did my homestay.
Okay. And so the cattle, I'm assuming they raise the cattle for food. So it sounds like the Australians ate a lot of beef. Is that correct?
Yeah, they do. They have a lot of, they call them barbecues. If you hear you're having a barbecue, sign yourself up because that means you're having steak.
Oh.
And describe for the audience, if they were just, driving through this farmland, what kind of crops, what kind of animals would they be seeing?
So there's huge hills, rolling hills. It's all lush and green from all the rainfall that they get. You see a lot of sheep. There's hogs. There's beef cattle, dairy cattle. And then you'll see kangaroos sometimes and wallabies, because the wallabies and the kangaroos like to eat the food and the water that the farmers supply for their animals, just like the deer like to eat all of the crops that the farmers have here. They have the same problem, only they're kangaroos. And then you see a lot of sugar cane.
Huh. Now, you brought some pictures of animals, correct?
Yeah.
Different animals? And I know that we assume Australia is nothing but kangaroos, but there are other.
Yeah.
So let's fast forward to those photos, Dwayne. There we go. All right, so let's kick off with this guy.
Yeah.
What is this?
This is an emu.
Oh.
We got to go to a rehabilitation center where they take care of some of the animals that have been hurt for different reasons. Here we got to feed him. He was very excited. It was kind of funny. He was a little aggressive. One of my friends, Matt, was the one who was feeding him, and he kept like pecking his hand, and it kind of hurt. It was funny.
Now, are they related to the ostrich?
I think so, but I don't 100% remember the relationship.
Okay.
There.
But they are flightless birds, right?
Yeah. This is a wallaby. So a lot of people think that Australia is all kangaroos, and actually I never saw a kangaroo in the wild. We only saw wallabies. So the wallabies are they're everywhere.
And what's the difference?
Okay.
I know they're related, but kangaroos are a lot bigger, so they grow a lot bigger and they're a lot stronger, and the wallabies are a lot smaller.
Okay.
So these are marsupials, right?
Yep.
And so they have the pouch in the front?
Yeah, when we were at the rehabilitation center, we saw some kangaroos, and they actually had the little like root in their pouch, so it was really cute.
Huh.
And then we did a whole, when we were on Magnetic Island, which is an island right off of Townsville, we did a whole study on the koala population. So that was really fun. We did some research and seeing like where the koalas are, and then we looked at the factors that impact koalas. It was crazy to see the koalas in the wild. They sleep for 22 hours a day because the only thing they eat is eucalyptus, and eucalyptus actually has no nutritional value, but their bodies have evolved over time, and so eucalyptus is the only thing that they eat. But since it has no nutritional value, that's why they sleep for about.
Now, are teddy bears come from koalas, or is it panda bears?
They're so soft. I wasn't expecting them to be as soft as they were, but as you would imagine, that is how soft they are. It was really fun.
Did you bring this back as a souvenir?
Yeah. I actually had to.
Did you really?
Yes.
What?
You could hold the koala. I only got to hold it for like 5 seconds, but it was the best 5 seconds of my whole life.
Now, what is that?
And this is a cassowary. This was actually my favorite animal that we saw. It's the only like dinosaur left, so it looks like a velociraptor or something, and that's because it's literally from the dinosaurs. They lay eggs, and they are super tall, and they're pretty dangerous. They have cassowary signs, so like road signs, where like we have like cow crossing or like deer crossing signs. They have cassowary crossing signs.
Now, are they endangered species? Are they protected?
Yeah, so they are pretty endangered, and there are ways to protect them. Australia talks about ways that they look to protect them.
What is the crown on the top of the head? Is that to use for fighting?
I would imagine, yeah.
Huh.
And how tall do these things get?
Like probably like up to my shoulders. So
Okay.
Wow.
they're
About
pretty
5
tall.
foot or so.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. All right. And so this, you were telling us earlier about this photo.
Yeah, so these are the lorikeets. When we stayed on Magnetic Island, we stayed at a hostel, and every day at 3 o'clock was feeding time, and you would just watch, like from 2:30 on, they would just come and nest in all these trees and just wait until the person who worked at Bungalow Bay came out with all the food, and then it was just feeding time, and they went wild.
Do they have like a song or some kind of specific call?
No, they just know when feeding time is.
Fascinating.
It was super.
It's like us.
Yeah.
It is. This is a little known fact. In one of the third world countries, when the English went to settle, the natives would draw a picture of a man with a clock inside, and they finally asked, why the clock? And they said, well, you eat on time. And so that's a difference between some of the natives and us. We eat at specific times, and sounds like the lorikeets are the same way.
The same, that's right. So let's continue on with some of these photos because, the animals, you could spend an entire culture cast just talking about these animals. So this is obviously an iconic photo I'm sure a lot of people have seen. What are we looking at here?
Yeah, so after the program was over, 11 of us traveled to Sydney for about a day and a half, and we just toured and looked at all the iconic parts of Sydney. But it was really cool. While we were there, a thing called Vivid was going on. So it's a light show that takes over the city, and then like the Opry House was lit up, the bridge was lit up. There were different parts where like you could walk through. The whole city was just lit up, and they had different lights on like all the skyscrapers and everything. And it was just kind of ironic that we were there while it was going on. Like we didn't know that was going to be happening. But
did you see any fireworks while you were there?
no.
Okay. I just always wondered if fireworks is big of a thing other places as they are here, because you talk about this light show, and like,
Yeah.
we wouldn't really see that
No,
here.
It was incredible. All of Sydney was really crazy. I was super excited. We got to see like UGG Australia, like the boots.
Oh, yeah.
So now I've seen the real UGG Australia.
Did you buy any?
I didn't,
Good for
but it was really fun because like I've been to New York City, so it's kind of like that. Only I've never been to Europe, but some of the people I was with have, and they said that you can definitely tell that Australia has broken off from Great Britain because a lot of their architecture and structure and layout of Sydney resembles different cities within Europe. So I thought that was really interesting.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you remember when Australia broke away from England?
I'm not sure, but they are still part of the
Commonwealth.
Yeah, the Commonwealth.
Oh, okay.
During my homestay, we talked about the difference between because they have the Commonwealth Games, which are like the Olympics, only it's only the parts that are within the Commonwealth. It was really cool while we were there. The royal wedding happened, so that was kind of interesting to be within one of
Sure.
the Commonwealth while that was going on.
Probably a much bigger deal there than like it would be here in the U.S. I mean, we all tuned in, but at least I did. And but in the Commonwealth country, that would have been fascinating to experience.
They were all interested. They were all talking about her dress and like just like the different impacts that it was going to have and all that sort of thing. It was really cool.
That's interesting. We have about 3.5 minutes, and Dustin always has a couple really good questions to ask the guests at the very end.
Well, thank you, Patrick. That was a good transition. First of all, Meredith, you talked a little bit about the oranges, but describe for us an Australian meal that you had.
Yeah, so they're very similar to the meals that we have in the United States. I'm a super picky eater, so that's always something I'm a little nervous about when I go abroad. But they eat a lot of beef. So like I mentioned, the barbecues, those are super common. They eat a lot of fruit because it's a fairly tropical area. It's very similar to the United States.
And the weather, how would you, which season of Ohio would you relate to the weather you experienced?
Northern Queensland, so Australia is the size of the United States. It's just shaped differently. So I didn't realize that when I was going there. But Northern Queensland, when we first got there, so that's like where the Reef and the Outback and all that sort of thing was, that would be like Florida.
Okay.
So it was really warm there. But then when we traveled to Sydney, that's in the south, so it's the opposite of the United States. That would be more like Ohio in like October, November.
Okay.
So it was like 50 there, but it was high 70s, 80s when we were in Northern Queensland.
And I've heard that when you flush the toilet, the water goes.
It does, yeah.
It goes the opposite way than it does.
They're in the southern hemisphere.
All right. That question I don't normally ask the people, but this one I do. So Meredith, our viewers saw some of these incredible photos. Tell them why they should visit Australia.
You should visit Australia because it's just incredible. The people are so nice. Their accents are awesome. The views are amazing. That's Walleman Falls. That's the largest sheer drop waterfall in Australia. He mentioned that all the photos look like from National Geographic, and everywhere you go just looks like a photo out of National Geographic. And the people are willing to share all of their different experiences and the love they have for their country. And it was just really amazing to spend a month there and learn all about the endemic portions and learn about the people and the culture and the impacts that humans have had on the environment.
And do you think this is something you would have done on your own if the study abroad wasn't available?
Yeah, I always had going to Australia on my bucket list, but I don't know if I would have actually ever made it there. And I definitely wouldn't have been able to do all the incredible things that I did on that trip on my own.
So lesson learned, if you are of college age or about to be college age, make sure that you take part in study abroad programs.
Yes.
I agree with Meredith. They plan everything for you, and that kind of experience can be hard to get on your own.
And of course, you need to make sure that Dustin goes with you.
Yes.
And then,
Yes.
Next time.
And then Dwayne and I, we sort of will carry your stuff for you. You know, we'll keep it the back. But I think that's just fantastic. Dustin, I envy you being able to talk with all the different students, work with the different students on the travels that they undertake. That is just fantastic.
I'm very lucky that I have this opportunity. And Meredith, I want to thank you. You've been an incredible guest and just completely, at least for me, sucked me in through these photos and the stories that you have. So thank you.
Yeah, you're
for being
welcome.
here today.
Thank you for having me.
Patrick, Dwayne, thank you both for the opportunity to be able to host this telecast as well.
Well, we appreciate you. I'm Patrick Dengel. Thank you for viewing, and we will see you next time on Culture Cast.